Prime Time Local News, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to Prime Time Local News. We have a jam-packed show for you today. Coming up in sports later on, Rustlers looking good.
Yeah, strong season for the Lakeland Rustlers women's basketball and volleyball teams thus far as well. Exciting news out of the CPCA chuck wagons. The Stampede invites are out. We have 10 drivers going to compete next year in August. So that's really exciting news.
Yeah, big news. Yeah. And Gerard, what's coming up in agriculture? Not so pretty, unfortunately.
Yeah, the pictures won't be so pretty, but it's an important conversation for producers, livestock owners and such there. It seems at this time of the year, furry friends seem to be more susceptible to picking up ulcers and especially eye infections. And, you know, eyesight is everything. Yeah,
exactly. But we'll have more on that coming up. But first, we're going to toss it over to Stacy for a look at your local news.
Thank you, Michaela. Police in Saskatchewan say a 6-year-old girl who was the subject of a multi-province Amber Alert has been checked out at hospital and reunited with her family. The girl, who is autistic and epileptic, was found inside her family's abandoned SUV this morning, about 2 kilometers from the North Battleford Strip Mall, where it had been stolen more than 12 hours earlier. RCMP say they have no suspects at this time. Well, a cold and dreary weekend wasn't enough to stop the annual Terry Fox Run in Lloydminster. 65 people took part in the event.
After what Terry Fox went through for his run, really it's not that much compared to what he did.
The annual race commemorating Terry Fox's run across Canada was held at Bud Miller Park this weekend. Dozens of participants ran around the lake and throughout the park. Over $10,000 in donations was collected for cancer research through cash, checks, and online donations. Well, the Terry Fox runs were held across the country on Sunday, and in Bonnyville, over 30 people participated and about $2,600 was raised for cancer research. Our own Justin Marshall caught up with one of the runners and joins us now.
Well, even the rain won't stop some dedicated people here at the Terry Fox Run in Bonnyville. It's just right across the street from Notre Dame High School at Saluda Pond. I'm here with Nigel Valley right now. Nigel, why'd you decide to come out, man?
I feel like it's a good cause and raise some money for Terry Fox and something to do, but definitely not the greatest day for it, but still coming out, and it's just lots of fun.
Well, you're a dedicated kid, man. Even the rain didn't keep you away, eh?
No, it's still pretty cold, but tried to layer up as much as possible, but still try to be a little bit faster, so it's going to be a good day.
And are you a runner, or are you just a big Terry Fox fan of what he did?
I'm a little bit of both. A runner, kinda. We do a lot of running at school, so just looking to get a little bit better at that.
And how much money did you raise today?
I brought in a total of $6, maybe bring in a little bit more, but we'll see.
Well, just for doing this, I'm going to give you a 20 sheet, okay?
All right, thank you.
Well, enjoy yourself, and are you going to win?
I hope so.
Well, you could come down, check out Saluda Pond, get involved in the Terry Fox Run.
Local elementary schools are finding a resourceful way to deal with old markers. Park Colony School is taking part in the Crayola Color Cycle program. Participating schools across Canada and the U.S. are sending their old markers off instead of throwing them away.
We ship them away, and the plastic goes into recycling and gets made into a wax compound that can be used for roofing for shingles or asphalt, or they're using it to generate electricity.
She says any marker may be used from dry erase to highlighters to permanent, and that the program is a great way to teach children about different ways to recycle. Well, Fall Fest is set to go Saturday at Bud Miller Park. The event is presented by the Lloydminster and District Co-op. It starts at noon and ends at 4 o'clock. There will be all kinds of food and free vendors for hot dogs and a corn roast.
It's just a fun activity to get families out to celebrate fall, the beginning of harvest for farmers, just to get out and spend some time as a family now that everybody's back in school.
Hot chocolate, coffee, and admission is free. For a list of activities, visit lloydminster.ca/fallfest. Well, it's been a celebration all year long for Portage College. It's their 50th anniversary this year. As Boom 103.5 Scott Mitchell reports, they celebrated by honoring their leaders and alumni this past weekend.
It hasn't always been known as Portage College. It's had many names over the years: Alberta New Start, New Dawn, Alberta Vocational College Lac La Biche, and finally becoming Portage College in 1999. The school opened in 1968 as a series of trailers in a field devoted to providing basic adult education. It almost closed just months later, but a group of Aboriginal students staged a sit-in and succeeded, and now they've expanded to St. Paul, Cold Lake, Boyle, Goodfish Lake, Frog Lake, and Saddle Lake. On Friday, the college celebrated their Golden Jubilee with a free Spirit of Community conference, barbecue, and the 50 on 50 alumni event with interim president and CEO Nancy Broadbent and Board of Governors Chair Randolph Benson honoring many of the leaders and alumni, as well as the First Nations and Métis founders. Benson says he doesn't dare think where the communities Portage serves would be if it weren't for the college itself.
I prefer to think about what we have been able to do, and that's transformed the lives of many peoples within the various communities we serve. And there was no greater evidence than the turnout of that tonight and the acknowledgement of all the hard work that's been done and an acknowledgement of all the hard work that needs to be done.
Saturday was a continuation of the celebrations with Voyager games and a jamboree on the soccer field at the Lac La Biche campus, which included powwow dancing, live music with last minute, hand games, elders making bannock over an open fire, and more.
From barbecues and children's festivals to the Spirit of Community Partnerships dinner and the 50 on 50 alumni event and Voyageurs games, it's been a fantastic year for Portage College's Golden Jubilee, and there's still more to come. For Primetime Local News in Lac La Biche, I'm Scott Mitchell.
The town of Vermilion hosted Planets and the Autumn Night Sky at the Provincial Park over the weekend. Unfortunately, the weather did not cooperate, so they did have to go indoors for a discussion, but they say they are planning on heading outside for the next event. Topics included some of the things that you can see in the sky during a clear night, like seeing Neptune, Saturn, and Mercury. I want to say thank you to Carrie Thompson for sending in the footage. And let's check in with Brittany now, who's at the local RCMP detachment.
Lloydminster RCMP have confirmed that they have found counterfeit money here in the border city. They have found bills of 20, 50, and 100 denominations at retailers throughout the city, and they are urging everyone to be cautious and double check your wallets to make sure you haven't accidentally picked up a counterfeit bill. There are a number of security features on each bill, and make sure that you're looking for, it's supposed to be like a plasticky feel type money, not paper, and it does have a bunch of holograms, and we're going to have a little bit more information of that coming up later on the show when we meet up with Staff Sergeant Joe Wenish to give us a rundown on how their investigation is going and how they're hoping that they're going to be able to stop these criminals from bringing this money into our community. But that's coming up a little bit later. Right now, we're going to head back into the studio and check in with Michaela for your look at this week's forecast.
All right, thank you, Brittany. Much drier than we were seeing this weekend, but currently only sitting at 6 degrees here in the border city, feeling more like 4 degrees. Records for this time of the year, 29 back in 1994 and -5 in 1991. Luckily, we're not in the minuses, but would be nice to be a little bit warmer. Currently, like I said, sitting 6 here, pretty much 6 and 7s across the region. 5 degrees out in Vegreville and Edmonton. Edmonton did see quite a bit of snow and precipitation over the weekend. Same in North Battleford. Here's our satellite radar from the last few hours. Patches of rain and a little bit of snow coming in, but hasn't hit our area just yet. No watches and warnings in effect currently. And then as we look to our 3-day forecast, so tomorrow a high of 9, so we're warming up just a little bit, but there is a low of 2 degrees there. Wednesday, more precipitation on the way, a high of 10, so we are going back up there. And Thursday, 8 degrees, 2 degrees for your low there. We could be seeing some more chance of flurries later on in the week, unfortunately, but I'll have those details for you, including your 7-day forecast coming up a little bit later in the show. But right now, we're going to take a quick break.
Welcome back to Agriculture News. Well, with the swift change in weather, area producers are being reminded to check the eyes of our furry friends. Let's learn about this prevalent vision problem. Veterinarians are advising producers to check their livestock as horses and cattle seem to pick up eye infections more often at this time of the year.
We see eye problems in horses and cattle all year round, but there seems to be a little bit of a heightened in late August to October, possibly due to the increase in flies passing around all the bacteria from animal to animal, getting itchy, grass-ons that are flying around into the eyes, just general changes that come with fall.
The problem is especially difficult when you understand the way in which a horse is able to see. Horses have great peripheral vision, which helps them evade prey.
They see left side and right side, which is why you don't want to walk up right behind a horse. They may not see you.
Horses have hooves, not hands, so it's difficult to remove a speck of dust or grass from their eyes.
I treat horse eye problems as an emergency. Horses lack fingers, so if they get something in their eye, they can't just wipe it out like we can. And this leads to a problem of making scratches on the eyes. Horse eyes, because they are so important for them, can definitely go from just nothing to the point where we may need to take the eye out in a hurry.
Horses will need to be sedated so that a vet can find the problem and treat it. Eye drops, ointments, and antibiotics are the next step. With cattle, the treatment is different.
Cattle, we don't generally have the luxury of being able to put eye drops in 4 times a day. And so they are treated more systemically with injectable antibiotics.
Producers need to look out for runny eyes. The vet will ask if it's both eyes and what color is the discharge. Getting drops in 4 times daily is a challenge.
If the eye drops are not going well, there are special little systems we can put in, which is basically a tube through the eyelid, and then we put it tied back, and you put the medication through that way.
Eyes are the windows to the world. Vets advise to treat eye problems sooner rather than later. Well, some Alberta farmers are concerned about their crops after a late summer snowfall blanketed parts of the province. Greg Sayers has been growing canola, wheat, barley and peas just north of Grand Prairie for about a decade and recently had about 15 centimeters of snow covering his crops. It pushed down his cereal and canola and froze anything that wasn't fully mature. The area needs warm, windy weather to dry the crops. Sayers says adding the current ground conditions will make it hard to get equipment on the land. Sayers is hoping his barley would go to malt beer brewing market, but now expects it will land elsewhere for a lower price. Well, the Agricultural Producers Association of Saskatchewan says a federal livestock tax deferral program does not go far enough. Ottawa says the program is for producers in areas affected by drought. Association President Todd Lewis says the areas eligible for the program do not include many producers in the western and the southeastern corners of the province. Lewis says all Saskatchewan producers should be eligible for the program. The program allows producers to defer a part of the sale proceeds of breeding livestock until next year. And just a quick programming note for all of us on CKSA. Look out for Ag Life later on this evening at 7:30. A very important conversation about the glyphosate debate. Right now, let's check the agriculture prices.
City Center Auto Body is proud to offer the paintless dent removal system. This works by going behind the panel, working out small dents. Lloydminster's trusted auto body shop for over 35 years.
A busy sports weekend in Lloydminster, and a chief story among them, the Lloydminster Bobcats home opener. They knew they had a tough task going into week 1 of the 2018-2019 season against the Spruce Grove Saints, but that didn't make the end result any easier to swallow. The defending champs held off strong starts from the Cats in both games, winning 5-2 in Spruce Grove and 4-1 in Lloydminster. The Bobcats were particularly frustrated with the effort on Saturday, giving up a first period lead and then being unable to fend off a 3-goal outburst in the third period.
We had chances to go up 2 or 3, but we didn't do that, and we just seems like we quit competing, right? And that's frustrating. And so we're making some adjustments in practice, working harder and competing on pucks until the whistle blows. And we got to get back in those working habits. And once we correct that, we'll be fine.
We have a lot of skilled people, so if we put a full 60 minutes together and work hard and be relentless on pucks, I think we'll have a good shot at beating any team in the league.
Clayton was happy, however, with the performance of new goaltender Nick Saunders between the pipes. And the Canadian Professional Chuckwagon Association received some exciting news over the weekend via the invite list for the Calgary Stampede Rangeland Derby in 2019. 10 CPCA drivers will compete, with 2 additional drivers serving in a demo capacity. Jamie Labacane, Chance Bensmiller, and Chris Smalley are among the 8 drivers returning to the Stampede, while Chris Flanagan and Danny Ringette will make their Calgary debut after solid showings in 2018. CPCA champion Dale Mitswing and Lane Tournier will also make their Stampede debuts, but as demo drivers. Chuckwagon legend and 7-time CPCA champion Ray Mitswing will race in Calgary for the last time as he ages out at the end of the upcoming season. And Lloydminster Middle School's Bishop Lloyd College Park and E.S. Laird hosted the J. William Gow Memorial Volleyball Tournament over the weekend, with the Service Sports Center and other facilities also utilized for the 30-plus team tournament. The St. Jerome Spartans topped the Bishop Lloyd Lancers in the boys Tier 1 final, while on the girls' side, the North Battleford Comp Vikings took home gold over the Jonas Sampson Stingers out of Meadow Lake. This is the first year the tournament has run under the new name since Gow passed away late last fall. And that's it for me in sports. We'll be back going to Brittany, live.
Staff Sergeant Joe Wenish joins me now, and we were just discussing that there's been counterfeit money being found floating around Lloydminster. Isn't that correct?
Yes, in the last couple of weeks, we've come across several occurrences, been reported to the police about counterfeit money being used, exchanged. Some of that money's been turned in. We're pursuing an investigation with it to find out where it's coming from, who's passing it, who's making it, and you know, it's kind of a slow process to go down that, see who's handled the money. We've had, you know, certainly if people are coming across it, report it to the police right away.
Mm-hmm. And what kinds of denominations are being found?
Typically there's 20s, 50s, and 100s are more common to be passed. Some of the merchants in town I've seen signs posted where they're not accepting 50s and 100s just because they're afraid to take in any counterfeit money.
And do we have like suspects? Is this something that's being actively investigated?
It's an active investigation right now, yeah. But we will ask for the public's help. If they know or have any leads or tips, they can always call us or Crime Stoppers. If they come into some money they suspect is counterfeit, they can definitely come to the office here. We can have a look at it and verify whether or not it is or is not counterfeit money.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing all that information with us. We are going to have a little bit more coming up from Staff Sergeant Wenish a little bit later on in the show, but right now we're just going to head back over to the studio and check in to see what's going on with this week's weather forecast.
All right, thank you, Brittany. Well, fortunately, feeling a lot more dry. Unfortunately, that could change come the weekend yet again. This is a photo from this weekend's Terry Fox Run over at Bud Miller Park, thanks to our friends over at Real Country. And the Bobcats were there cheering on all the people that crossed the finish line. So great job if you braved the weather and got out there this weekend. Currently sitting at 6 degrees, nowhere near the records of 29 back in 1994, which would be nice. Just going to step out so we can look at the numbers across the region. Currently sitting in North Battleford, they actually saw 19 millimeters of precipitation. Of course, they did see some snow, which didn't stick and then melted off. So that does account for those millimeters. But pretty wet air right across the region all weekend. Cold Lake sitting at 6. Wainwright apparently does not exist. We'll get that number up there for you soon. Bonnyville sitting at 6 degrees. Overnights, no one going below the freezing mark, fortunately. And tomorrow, we should just be around 8 and 9s all across the map. Here's a look at your next 24 hours. Much cloud cover coming in. That precipitation will be rolling in around Thursday night into Friday morning. Look at that, pretty much 9 across the board, no matter where you are tomorrow. Looking at our school day forecast, 8 a.m. you're for sure going to need to bundle up. 3 degrees for your high. Recess warming up to only 4 degrees. Lunch will be around 6 degrees and home 9 degrees, so you are going to need that jacket. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. There's that precipitation that could start Thursday night into Friday morning, and that is a rain-snow mix. And then 4 degrees on the weekend, 5 on Sunday, 5 again on Monday. And that's been a look at your 7-day forecast.
Staff Sergeant Joe Wennis joins me again. We were just discussing about how can you identify on your bill whether or not it's counterfeit or real. And there are a few different things with these bills that are circulating around that do show that they are fake and not real money.
For sure. I have a legitimate $50 bill here. And on the bill itself, for quick reference, if you're in the store taking money or accepting money from somebody, is you can also look for the holograms are quite distinct on this bill. There's one up in this corner. Also in the strip, there's features in it. Up along the side of the strip, you'll probably notice some number 50s there. So that corresponds with the denomination. Also, the individual that's photoed on here is their picture appears in the hologram as well. The holograms are quite distinct. Quite often with the counterfeit, trying to counterfeit the polymer bill. That's the other telltale sign. It's the feel of it. It's not a paper bill. But the hologram is more distinct. It's got color. If you change the angle of it, it'll reflect certain colors.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like paper at all. It is more like a plasticky feel.
That's right, yeah. It's a lot harder to counterfeit, but it is being done, and I can show you an example if you want to hold that one. This is a counterfeit $50 bill. Looks the same if you want to, if you can hold that up. They do look the same. The color's a little bit off because this one is obviously printed on paper. What happens is they take the hologram portion off of another bill and put them together. So if you can see, this hologram is actually taken from a $5 bill. Whoever did this bill did it a little bit backwards. They flipped this over because the image on this one is actually on the other side, and I don't think you can see it because of the way they did it, but it is backwards. Also, there's 5s in there instead of 50s. Quite often with the 20s, you'll see the same thing. It'll be a $5 bill because they're making 20s, 50s, and 100s out of them. Also, the other feature up here, this hologram is non-existent. It's just white because it's on the paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this one definitely does feel like paper, and it doesn't feel plastic at all.
That's right. You know, just a little bit of awareness too. If you're collecting money and somebody's paying with 50s, you can always have a quick look at the serial number as well on the back, because quite often those won't change. It's going to be a photocopy or a copy of that same bill.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And we're going to have a little bit more coming up later on in the show from Staff Sergeant Wennis. And we're going to talk a little bit about what to do if you are a retailer and you do encounter this fake money here in Lloydminster and surrounding area. But right now, we're just going to head back over to the studio and check in with them.
All right, some great tips from our local RCMP. I did see over at Tim Hortons, they were warning against that fake money. So do be careful, especially if you're a local business in town here. So currently sitting at 6 degrees here in Lloydminster, pretty much the same story across the map. A little bit warmer as we get into Vegreville, Wainwright, Provost, Macklin, sitting at 7, but we're far, far off from our normals for this time of the year. Look at that precipitation that kind of came in, that cloud cover just been sitting over the city all day. We barely got some sunshine here today. Looking at our watches and warnings, none in effect, which is always a good thing since we technically are still in summer. And then we look to our numbers across the region. North Battleford currently sitting at 6, feels more like 4 degrees though. Cold Lake sitting at 6 as well. Wainwright, still no number on the board, but we'll get that soon. Bonnyville also sitting at 6. Overnight lows getting to 2, 1, and 1 degree. Warmest in North Battleford, where they did see 19 millimeters of precipitation over the weekend. Tomorrow, those highs are going back up to 9, double digits down in Wainwright. And then as we look to our 7-day forecast, Thursday night into Friday is when we do have to worry about that rain-snow mix coming back into the city. Of course, that could always lead into some freezing rain on our roads, but averages for this time of the year are 16 and 3 degrees. So as you can see, we're kind of far off of that, dipping down to the minuses overnight. We aren't hitting them right now, but it does feel cooler as we hit those overnight lows. -2 on Friday, Saturday -3 for the low, 4 degrees for the high, but at least we get some sunshine Thursday during the day. All right, well, enough wet talk, because I feel like that's
those numbers are not
good.
there.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
What was trending on social media was actually the Amber Alert, and that sparked our question of the day, because some of us in the newsroom didn't actually receive the alert. So we wanted to know, did you receive yesterday's Amber Alert coming out of North Battleford? And here's what you guys had to say. If we can throw some of those boards up. There we go. Sienna says, I didn't get one until 7:30 this morning. Lindsay said she got 2, but her husband didn't get any. And Debbie says she didn't get one, but her husband did. Same phones, but both tell us. So there's not really a rhyme or reason as to why people were getting these and weren't getting these.
Yeah.
And then we also, a little bit later on in the show, do have Chris Hasselhover from Century 21 coming to talk about millennials and buying homes. So we threw up this poll: would you be willing to co-sign or put down a down payment for your child's first home? And no one says they're about to co-sign. 62% say no, and 38% say they'd put a down payment. So very interesting topic. But let's get into our pet of the days. This is Betty, sent in by Brittany. Super cute photo there. And we also have Butterscotch. What a nice smile. This was sent in by Daniel. And then this is Chinook, sent in by Lori. That is really cute. No, wait, we got one coming up. There's Peanut. Peanut's my favorite from today. Look, it's not just cats and dogs. So if you want to feature your pets of the day, do send them in to us for at Primetime Local News. We'll be right back after this break.
Staff Sergeant Joe Wenish joins me again, and we're talking about now what to do if you actually encounter one of these counterfeit bills here in the community.
If you come across a counterfeit bill, whether you're a retailer or you just go home and you think this bill is counterfeit, you can always bring it into the police detachment. We'll check it over. If it's counterfeit, we're going to seize it. We'll initiate an investigation, or with the string that we've had, it all become part of it. We would like people to really check over their bills and try and remember, if you've got a certain bill from a certain place, that's a really good thing for us to be able to follow up on, is where this money is being passed in town. And just be cautious about collecting bills. Like, check them over when you're getting them. And there's also Bank of Canada website has really good information on counterfeit bills and the security features in the bills themselves. So just a little bit of education on your own.
And now, if I am a shop or store owner and I do encounter this money, can I just reject it?
Yes, you can. I would turn it back over to the individual and say, we can't accept this money. It looks like counterfeit. You can take it to the police and have them look into it.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for sharing all that information with us and helping us identify, when there is counterfeit money in the community. It is really important that we're aware of that. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing that. And we're just going to head right back over to the studio and check in with them.
All right, I'm joined with Chris Hassel from Century 21 here in Lloydminster. Thank you so much for making the time to join me today. And we're talking millennials and houses. I'm a millennial, and I know the thought of buying a house seems daunting to me, but you're here to say it's not impossible.
Absolutely not. Impossible is a tall word.
Yeah.
So the big hurdle usually off the bat is just to make sure to go visit the good old bank.
Yeah.
Bank, finance company, mortgage consultant, mortgage specialist, and say, how much can I afford? Can I take this much or can I take this much?
Right.
And make sure that comfort level's there. A lot of people want to rent for a long period of time. And if you're going to be in a job where it's a short term and you don't know your length of town, maybe that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But getting in the market, especially now when the market's been down a little bit, could show some nice gains on returns come time to sell it here down the road.
Okay, so if you are a millennial, it's not always a cheaper option to rent. A mortgage can actually be cheaper than renting from someone.
Absolutely, and there's no basis for savings. So it's a matter of, if you're renting, it's just a cost.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're going to have home ownership, you're going to have forced savings and enjoyment. So how do we measure that? How do we say it's my place? and the enjoyment and comfort of living that comes with that. So,
yeah. And but shopping for a home has changed. I know if I'm going out to buy a house today, it's not the same as if my parents were going to buy it at the same age as me.
It's
so how has it changed?
Well, years ago, I mean, your parents or my parents, I mean, back then the realtors were the custodians of all the information. So you had to come to me to find out, you might saw an ad in the newspaper or something like that, you had to call me to find out square footage, address, all that good stuff. Now we give you all the information. So typically a millennial will go on, or a consumer will go on and do their searches and say, what do I want? How much do I want to spend? Has it got 3-bed, 2-bath? And do all the research and then maybe engage a professional.
Okay.
So completely different than your parents or what it was years ago. And in a good way, because we give the consumer all the information so they can make informed choice before maybe calling up that agent and say, hey, you know, can we start this process? We want to look at a place. So,
And so as a millennial who's looking to purchase their first home, what is that first step that they got to make?
To me, it would be reach out and find out what your financial capability is. Because as the old saying is, if we show you a steak, bologna's a tough sell. If you're looking at a price range that's too high, you know, it's tough to come down. Get that comfort level on how much you want to spend and how much you want to, you know, be comfortable per month in your budget. Then when you engage someone like myself, you can say, here's the price range, here's how much, I've checked with the bank, we're good to go, I'm comfortable at this range, what can I get? And then that way it's easier for us just to narrow down that focus, be quick with your time on what we can sell you or present to you for possible purchase. So,
okay, and quickly we're running out of time, but I want to know, what would you say is the best tip for someone who's purchasing their first home?
There's 2. Pre-approval, get a top agent on your behalf. So,
all right. Well, thank you so much. Chris Hassel will be back in studio with us many more times talking about just everything housing. So if you have any questions, do send them in to Primetime Local News, and we'll get Chris to answer those. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, I'm Scott Mitchell from Boom 103.5 with a look at what's happening in Lac La Biche County. This week, we are continuing the 50-year anniversary celebrations for Portage College. It all kicks off with the Mini Canoe Fest happening at the college gymnasium on Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Children's entertainer Bobby Boogaloo will be hitting the stage, and local band Last Minute going to be on stage as well. These guys opened up for Trooper when they were here a couple of months ago and were absolutely phenomenal. So make sure you're coming on down and checking them out. There will be a concession available for the event. And then as well on Friday night, you can come and check out a drive-in movie. Do you remember the days of drive-in movies? Well, come on down to the Bold Center back parking lot. They will be showing Jumanji Under the Stars. You can either bring your own warm blanket and watch the movie that way, or sit in the comfort of your own car. It's going to be awesome. You're going to want to come check it out. Showtime's at 8:30. And then on Saturday night is a night of rock. Lee Aaron, Prism, and Honeymoon Suite as part of Portage College Canoe Fest. And it's going to kick off at 8 o'clock at the Bold Center Fieldhouse. And you're going to want to get your tickets for this. Tickets are available through the Bold Center, Ticketmaster, Britain's Your Independent Grocer, and Lac La Biche Sporting Goods. And don't forget as well to be listening to Boom Mornings. All this week, we are going to be giving away some tickets to the show. And of course, Portage College would like to thank their sponsor of the Golden Jubilee, Devon Canada. If you have an event you would like us to feature on What's Happening, email the details 1 week in advance to scott@boom1035.com.
Welcome back, folks. I'm here with our Greg Buchanan, of course, voice of the CPCA and host of the sports show on Tuesday evenings. Another exciting weekend to talk about sports. We really off to a pretty good start for sports this fall. You know, plenty of action locally in terms of hockey, football, high school sports in terms of volleyball. We had the J. William Gow Memorial Tournament over the weekend. But what's on many people's minds, of course, is the Bobcats opening weekend, which was a disappointing one, a 5-2 loss in Edmonton, or in Spruce Grove rather, against the Saints. And then they hosted the defending champs on Saturday night, and not the third period that Coach Clayton was looking for.
Yeah, 1-1 going into the third, and you're at home. You lose the night before against Spruce Grove. You know, and credit to Spruce Grove, they're the defending league champions, and they won because they know how to win. And they showed that in the final 20 minutes of that game. It looked like the Bobcats just stopped competing, and Spruce Grove took over, and that is why they won league championships. So lessons learned, and they always say you learn more from losses than you do from wins. So you're hoping the Bobcats learned something in the first weekend, because it doesn't get any easier. Fort Mac comes to town Friday and Saturday, and you cannot afford to go out to a 0-4 start.
Yeah, and so as we were talking about with not competing as hard in the third period, that obviously can't happen again in this weekend where you have 2 straight home games. So what do you do in practice to make sure that not competing hard enough isn't an issue?
You battle and you battle and you battle. You have battle drills and you show, and I think more or less the battles down low, behind your net, behind the opposing net. You got to win those battles, those one-on-one battles, to get the puck, get it out, or get in front of the net for a scoring opportunity. So you know, Travis is probably not going to have a lot of skating, but just a lot of compete. And you want to see compete in practice all week long, and you hope it carries over to Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, the Lloydminster Bandits were also competing over the weekend, and a split to start things off for the September.
Yeah, it's a preseason, so a lot of times, you know, you had 46 kids at camp for the Bandits, so they're looking to see who's going to make this team, who won't make this team. And on Friday, they beat Vermilion 5-1, and then on Sunday, lost to St. Paul 5-3. St. Paul had a very veteran lineup, close to 10, 20-year-olds in their lineup. So it's, you know, some good indications that the Bandits can compete at that level, and showing out to some players that can't play at that level, and then showing that some players can't. So more decisions to come, and they go on the road this weekend in St. Paul. Then the regular season begins in 2 weeks' time. Yeah,
which gives basically a little under 2 weeks' time to finalize that roster.
Yeah, finalizing the roster, knowing where your strengths are going to be. The Bandits will be deep up front. The back end's going to be hopefully coming together, and in that they should be pretty solid.
Sounds good. I know hockey fans will be happy to see that going forward in the next couple of weeks. And we'll have more with Greg Buchanan on Primetime Local News this evening.
All right, thank you, Josh. Looking at our Lloydminster 7-day forecast, we are going to be warming up to 9 degrees tomorrow. Only a 12% chance precipitation. Wednesday, that goes back up to 40 with a high of 10. Thursday is a 24% chance throughout the day, but that precipitation overnight can turn into snow. Friday, 4 for the high, -2 overnight, so we are dipping into those negatives. Again on Saturday, 4 for the high, and Sunday, 5 for the high, -2 for the low, and again a 5 on Monday to wrap up your 7-day forecast. -1 for the low there. Not looking good for our community ag farmers, and which is not the numbers we want to see at this time of the year, unfortunately. But hopefully we can get some of that moisture.
Fingers crossed,
yeah,
hopefully,
hopefully that would be good.
I think the only plus is you're saying when it's that mixed precipitation, we're not below the freezing mark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then of course we have chance of freezing rain when that happens, and so
always
not
fun to drive
looking
in.
good. Yeah, unfortunately. But we are going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with all your top stories right here on Primetime Local News. Stay with us.